Well, what do we mean by 100-year-old homes?
Anything that was built between 1923 and 1924.
The first 100-year-old homes in Hollywoodland.
The first structure in Hollywoodland was the tract office.
It was supposed to be a temporary structure, but here it is over 100 years old now.
It was designed by John Delario, as were the gates.
The towers in the tract office are pretty much the exact same age.
We're very fortunate that the current owner has owned it in her family for quite some time. The original tract deeds are still intact for the entire tract. Any lot that was developable had sort of a profile in it, and those have been saved. Some of them are unbelievably interesting, and we hope to share some of that through our journey through the houses.
In this early photograph of the tract just freshly graded, we can see the first house down here. That's the house that's at 2720 Woodhaven.
That time it was called Westwood Drive. They changed it shortly after the tract started.
The developer was the architect, A.B. Christ, who did several homes in Hollywoodland.
In the exhibit, we have quite a bit of information about Mr. Christ because he carried on a long-term conversation with one of the original residents.
And this is how it looks like today. If we go back to this photo...
Notice the sign isn't even in at that point in time, too.
No, it isn't. You can see the second house, just a glimpse of it, and that's the one that's at 2815 North Beechwood Drive. Who's the architect of this structure?
Pierpont Davis with his engineering brother, Walter Davis. And it's interesting when we kind of dissect all the houses, they weren't all Spanish. There was a majority of them at the start that were more like this, storybook cottage, a cottage with European flavor.
Back to the original photo, and we can see this plateau here is where the third house in Hollywoodland will go. That's 2846 Westshire Drive. And the reason we know it's the third house is because this little girl in the picture is named Rosemary Hannon, and her father built it. He was one of the salesmen for the Hollywoodland tract.
We had the opportunity to meet her, and she shared some of the stories about growing up here in Hollywoodland. What we recently discovered was that this was also built by John Delario.
Now we come to the fourth house that was built in Hollywoodland. It was again the same architect as did the one on the right, the first house, A.B. Christ.
Ivory Tower, as the set designer Joel Schiller claimed to rename it.
And that would be the owner, Joe, who lived there with his partner, Albert Heinzelman.
Joel had a movie shoot in Rome, Italy. He saw that moon face.
The Palazzetto Zuccari.
Thought it would be very fitting for this European-style neighborhood. And I have to admit, it does add the charm.
A lot of the first homes came in on the floor bed of Beechwood Canyon. We have this one that's at 2724 North Beechwood Drive. The stone front was added later when the owners took advantage of the granite that was being offered.
And not only did they offer the stonework, but they also offered the labor to install it. So it's laced throughout the neighborhood and gives a unification, a visual unification.
And then right across from that is a real early one at 2729. I guess they call this Dutch Colonial.
This type of house is extremely interesting in that the roof line is completely different, so much more unique than, say, the subdivisions of the same era in Hancock Park, where the starter homes were basically tract homes.
Opposite Beechwood going north, we have 2750 North Beechwood Drive.
These are all unique and all interesting.
Then we go up to 2810 North Beechwood Drive.
Also, Pierpont Davis house. They had a double lot, and the original owner had beautiful camellias that she treasured and won prizes with. So it's not just the house, it's also the landscape that goes with it that's stunning.
And we see another house going up nearby. This one would be at 2755 Woodshire. And it is a John Delario designed house, and John Delario was the official tract architect of Hollywoodland. Across the street at 2738 Woodshire, Milton Bud Wolfe designed and built a house for speculation. Right up the hill at 2764 Belden, the architect A.B. Chris built his third house in Hollywoodland, also on spec.
This house is so unique in that it's the only one that displays a Moorish design with the circular element at the roofline. Very interesting.
And we can also see it here clearly in this Invasion of the Body Snatcher still. Up the hill from there, we have 2846 Durand Drive, which was built by the developer Milton Wolfe. He was a native of Indiana who came out to California, and he developed a lot of homes in Windsor Square and Hancock Park before coming to Hollywoodland.
And we know from his granddaughter that he did go to Europe, studied the architecture there, kind of came back with these ideas and sketches, photographs, and from that point on, he went on to design Wolfe's Lair.
In this case, though, as a developer, he was building his own home, and he lived in Hollywoodland for many, many years. We come back on Pelham Place and look down to the original homes, and we can see a very early one here in this Dutch Colonial, and that one is at 2729 Westshire Drive.
When we look at the houses from that era, from the 24 era, you notice the open space around it. A lot of the people of that era purchased the lots adjacent to them. So it was a whole different landscape feeling. And then people cover their front with fences and hedges, and so we don't get to appreciate the beauty of the houses.
We're looking northwest here, and what's notable in this photograph is Ledgewood Drive. It seems that Ledgewood doesn't even come down all the way to Beechwood here.
From Beechwood to the Five Points was an alley. And then Mr. Woodruff went to the city and said, I want to make this a street. And the file is interesting because, again, it's kind of loosey-goosey. And they claim that the street was more than 20 feet wide when it was really 19, and there's no dedication and all that other stuff that you're supposed to have.
Up the hill at the top, and we can see this house looks like it's finished, so it preceded a lot of the other ones. In this photo, we see Ledgewood down here, and over here to the right, that's Heather coming up to Durand. And I love all the stones that are being laid there to start the wall. Over here, that's Rogerton. And in the background, that's Westshire heading up the hill. This 100-year-old home, and one of the earliest high in the hills, is at 3154 Durand Drive. This was a Delario home, and here we have the side view and the front view. It seems obvious that they must have run out of money because this roof line for the top is not what Delario designed. They made the roof less of a curved mansard into just a straight cone.
The real visionary for this house was a sculptor. And he was a well-known sculptor of the time, but he lacked funds, even though Harry Chandler loaned him money to build the house. I don't believe he ever lived in the house. Estrom?
Yeah, David Estrom. He was known for his memorials and busts. The house was downhill from Durand, so the garage had to go up at street level. That's why this is what you see today. One of the very earliest and the highest one up is the Kantz Gallery, also by John Delario. It's at 6182 Mulholland Drive. The Kantz Gallery originally started downtown in 1895.
Yeah.
And he came up here, and he was known for Remington and Charles Russell weren't the artists who not only exhibited there but were guests in the house.
We had the opportunity to meet the daughter who grew up in the Kantz Gallery, and she shared many things with us. The city gave them a bunch of crap for putting a commercial use in a residential community, and I get that.
We have two of our 100-year homes on Belden, this one at 2966 Belden, and this one at 3072 Belden. Here we see them looking side by side, but the farther one is across Ledgewood on Belden. The one in the foreground was the home of James M. Cain in 1941, where he wrote Mildred Pierce.
They say windows are the eyes of a house, and they also are the character of the house. And what's happened over the years is the windows on this particular house have been changed out. So it lost a lot of its character, but no control over that.
This fairy tale cottage at 3072 Belden was designed by the tract architect John Delario. It's really interesting how it seems like such a tiny house from the street, but if you see it from the back, you realize it goes down. So that was the concept that Delario was really good at. He could take essentially a downhill or an uphill lot and build a substantial house. And we can see it here today. Right next door at 3060 Belden, we have another 100-year-old home that shows the same example of building a house that looks small at the front, but then going down the hill at the back to create a more substantial house. In this 1923 photo, we see it in construction. Up at the left is what was the model home for the tract of Hollywoodland and was known as the Norman Castle. At 6201 Rogerton, the development company financed several houses and then sold them. This one was rented out before it was bought by an owner, and it was used for community events. It was designed by the tract architect John Delario, and I think it's a great example of his work. The stonework, the roof line, the entranceway, the garages, all of it was absolutely beautiful.
A lot of the interior work was brought from Europe. Furnishings came from the Riverside Inn. So it must have been quite spectacular. We also have a neighbor whose grandfather owned the house at one point in time. And his grandfather was an architect and professor at USC.
Sadly, in 1961, the Hollywoodland fire destroyed the house, so it's no longer with us. 2829 North Beechwood Drive. This one has been remodeled, so it's hard to tell what it originally looked like.
So the remodeling came above the garage. We tried to work with the builder architect to make sure that the windows were replicated from the original windows, and as you can see, they did try to do that.
Then as we go farther north, close to Beechwood on Westshire, is 2888. And this one you really can't see from the street.
And this is an example of how to build an upslope lot. You end up having about 64 steps to get to the front door. And that way you move the house into the hillside. It doesn't sort of stand out, but it adds to a lot of privacy and certainly grace.
And then you go a couple of lots north, and you get this one at 2904 Beechwood Drive. And then right north of that is this one at 2910 Beechwood Drive.
Both of these houses were built by John Delario. The turrets add so much to all these 20s houses.
I really love the birdhouses. It's just really nice.
Which is sweet.
Going a little further north, but crossing the street, you come to this at 2933 North Beechwood Drive.
A very odd lot. Borders two streets. The architect who built this had to have understood the European flavor that they wanted, sort of meshing again with the hills, working with the hills.
And the last one on Beechwood Drive is this one at 3004 North Beechwood Drive.
This was also built and designed by Mr. Christ. It's kind of his style. If you look at some of the other ones, the windows are similar.
We've come to the last of our 100-year-old homes with this one, which is at 2866 Belden Drive.
I did know someone who owned it, who was a very interesting man, a photographer, Richard Noble.
There's the first 100-year-old homes in Hollywoodland.
We hope you enjoyed our visual tour.
And subscribe to our channel as we will be making more videos.